So now Biden is trying to gaslight the American public by claiming that his border disaster is Republicans' fault. It's the Republicans' fault. Look at these great people, all big shot politicians. It's your fault.
You don't need a deep dive into the history books to find an example of how talking cavalierly about violent clashes and resisting the federal government at a contentious time can lead to dark places. 3 years ago, Republican politicians and pro-Trump influencers likened efforts to overturn the 2020 election to 1776 and invoked militaristic rhetoric like combat. It turned out a bunch of people took that literally, launching the first large-scale attack on the U.S. Capitol in 200 years.
America first! America first!
Another thing I would say, Lester, is, as we try to figure out, well, it looks now like the Capitol, the police have been able
Pete, let me break
to hold
away
these
from you a
people back.
second, because things are happening very quickly.
The government did this to us. We were normal, good, law-abiding citizens.
They no longer have been able to keep them back.
This is our country.
Despite that relatively recent cautionary tale, some people are offering a similar framing for a tense dispute between Texas Gov. Greg Abbott, R., and the Biden administration over the southern border. Repeatedly in recent days, Republicans and conservative media have alluded to the prospect of the situation forcing soldiers to choose between loyalty to their state and loyalty to their country, even proposing that matters could turn confrontational and violent. Some have invoked another civil war.
The story of history is the story of invasions. One group of people moving into someone else's land and taking it. One nation ends, another begins. Invasions drive history. Few Americans understand this is happening to them right now. The United States of America is being invaded.
For the love of God, this is a damn invasion. Who is allowing this?
They invaded our privacy.
I think it's an invasion of the country.
In other words, it's ending. The country you grew up in no longer exists. Soon it will be unrecognizable. No one is fighting back. Few are even acknowledging it. And the people who lead us are letting it happen.
Comments have increasingly referenced a situation in which President Biden would try to federalize the National Guard. A few current and former Democratic members of Congress have called for such a step, after Abbott signaled that the Texas National Guard would continue laying razor wire along the border, despite the Supreme Court saying federal authorities can remove it. The White House has shrugged off such calls to federalize the Guard.
Well, Stuart, that'd be a huge mistake for the Biden administration if they do that. The last time any National Guard troops were federalized was during the Eisenhower administration and the Little Rock Nine. And if Joe Biden does this, he may be, go down in history as the Mexican drug cartel 9 million, because there have been almost 9 million people that have crossed the border illegally over the last 3 years under his watch. So I think politically it's a disaster. I think from a policy standpoint, it would be a horrible move. But we'll see. But this administration has done both those things. They've made bad policy decisions, and they've made bad political ones.
Well, how do you see this playing out? There's got to be some kind of resolution at some stage here. What's the resolution?
Well, what would be wonderful is some Trump-era policies worked very well. Wait in Mexico. I was down on the border, Stu, a few weeks ago, and the Customs and Border Protection agents were telling us if Joe Biden just instituted the Wait in Mexico policy, that we would see a 70% reduction in the flow of illegals to our border.
Texas has again rebuffed demands from the Biden administration for it to have full access to the Shelby Park area of Eagle Pass amid an ongoing standoff between the federal government and the state.
This is Shelby Park on the Rio Grande. It is now the new battleground between the state of Texas and the federal government. But it didn't always look like this. Now it's fenced in, surrounded by miles of razor wire, just like this, and there's armed Texas National Guard on standby. Federal Border Patrol agents can't even get full access to the park, which they say is a problem if they're trying to reach migrants in distress. On Monday, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Biden administration, but our CBS cameras were there when they caught Texas National Guardsmen laying out more wire. Texas officials say they will hold the line. Federal officials say Texas should allow them full access to this park by Friday.
The Department of Homeland Security had written to Attorney General Ken Paxton this week, seeking full access to the Shelby Park area currently obstructed by Texas, after Gov. Greg Abbott's administration had taken control of it earlier this month. DHS has repeatedly sought access to the area, and in response last week, Texas said it will allow entry to any Border Patrol personnel responding to an emergency.
Department of Justice officials now accusing the state of Texas of blocking Border Patrol agents from accessing several miles along the U.S.-Mexico border in Eagle Pass. According to official sources, Texas has restricted access now to several miles of the Rio Grande down in near Eagle Pass. State authorities late Wednesday began adding razor wire, fencing, and gates to shut off access to Shelby Park and an area under a port of entry bridge. The restrictions come as the number of migrants encountered in the area have fallen to about 500 per day. That's down from the thousands who illegally entered the U.S. less than a month ago. The Texas Military Department says in a statement that its reason for the action is to, quote, restrict access to organizations that perpetuate illegal immigrant crossings in the Eagle Pass area.
In response, DHS said it wants unrestricted access during emergencies, as well as regular access to the port of entry, the boat ramp, and border barrier entrances. The letter also identified parts of the area where it claimed to have acquired real estate interests and therefore should be able to access them. Because the department owns property rights to the areas depicted on the attached map, we demand that you immediately remove any and all obstructions on it. The letter said.
Seriously, on to the crisis at the southern border, and what many commentators are now calling an invasion of the United States by illegal migrants. Have a look at this footage here. What you're seeing on your screen is footage that was reportedly taken in La Jolla, California this week, Thursday. It shows what appears to be some sort of speedboat, a landing craft, beaching itself on the Southern Californian coast. Now, migrants quickly get off the boat and start making a break for it into the surrounding neighborhood, pursued by cops, but it is unclear whether any of them were actually apprehended. And this group here you see, well, that's just a drop in the bucket, because not long after that footage came to light, Customs and Border Protection in the U.S. dropped their latest figures and revealed that a record 302,034 so-called encounters with illegal migrants along just the southern border alone.
Paxton, in response to that letter, dismissed the legal basis for the demand. He disputes the claim that the federal government has rights over the areas claimed by the administration. With respect to parcels identified in your maps that are actually in the vicinity of the park, publicly available records suggest the United States does not even purport to own what your latest letter claims, he wrote in a Friday letter. He went on to request that the agency supply maps and deeds showing the areas it claims the U.S. government owns and how officials are blocking access to them. He also dismisses claims by the administration that it needs access to the area to patrol the border.
He didn't specifically name Carroll tonight, but he did allude to the case more broadly. And this was the first time that we heard him publicly speak since he was hit with that $83.3 million in damages that he now owes E. Jean Carroll for defaming her. Take a listen to what he had to say this afternoon.
Look at yesterday. Look at all this crap that's going on. But we keep marching forward. We just keep going.
The former president spent the majority of his Las Vegas speech this afternoon focused on immigration and border security.
Texas will be given full support, and I will deploy all necessary military and law enforcement resources to seal up the final section of border. You know, we built over 500 miles of wall.
Trump supporters continue to seem unfazed by the candidate's ongoing court troubles and recent losses. And those attending today's rally told me that they plan on standing with the former president.
If he was doing real crimes, serious crimes, I don't think he would have the support that he does. And you're seeing with the backing through all these Republican primaries and caucuses so far. I just think it's grasping at straws.
But you, unsurprisingly, omit the statutory language that your agency continues publicly to disregard. Border Patrol is tasked with patrolling the border to prevent the illegal entry of aliens, he said. As I said before, this office will continue to defend Texas's efforts to protect its southern border against every effort by the Biden administration to undermine the state's constitutional right of self-defense. You should advise your clients to join us in those efforts by doing their job and following the law, he said. The letter comes as part of a multifaceted standoff between the two sides when it comes to how to deal with the ongoing border crisis.
And remember, I alluded to it, the bathing suit. He's in the bathing suit. If he would just go to the beach, and if he would have just gone to the beach, you know, they think he looks good in a bathing suit. You know the chair, you know those chairs are meant for little children to lift up for their grandfathers, okay? He can't lift up the chair. He can't drag his feet through the sand. Doesn't work too well. Remember when he said, I'd like to take him behind the barn and punch him. Remember? And they all thought, the fake news said, isn't that nice? Isn't that cute? Oh, that was such a cute. Supposing I said that about him, I'd like to take him behind the barn and give him a shot. They'd say, he's a fascist. He's a fascist. They would call me a fascist. With him, he can say it. They thought it was so cute. I remember when he said that. And you know what would happen if he took me behind the barn? I'd go like this. It would happen very fast. It would be over very fast.
The Supreme Court this week sided with the administration when it granted an emergency appeal to allow agents to keep cutting border wire set up by Texas after a lower court had blocked such moves. However, Border Patrol currently has no plans to remove the wire unless in an emergency, a senior CBP official told Fox on Friday.
Yeah, Heather and Steve, a senior Border Patrol official said that there's no plans for now to take down any of that razor wire unless there is some sort of emergency they need to get to. It is as more red states vow to support the position that Texas is taking. Along the border in Eagle Pass, it appears Texas is in charge, and some want it to stay that way.
Mr. President, you say you want to secure the border. Texas has secured it. Leave it alone. We don't need you down here.
A Friday deadline that the federal government set for the state to let federal agents access a park in Eagle Pass will apparently pass with no changes. The state took control of the high crossing area earlier this month, even though the feds said they needed it to do their job. A court ruling Monday also paved the way for the feds to take down razor wire, but Texas has since added more. It prompted some calls for the federal government to take over the Texas Guard.
And I would remind everyone that the circumstances under which the federal government can mobilize a state's National Guard are outlined in the law, right? So that I'll leave that there, but I'm just not going to get into speculations on any actions the president's going to take at this time.
The Biden administration has also sued over the Texas law, recently signed by Abbott, that allows state and local law enforcement to arrest illegal immigrants. There has been another legal feud over the establishment of buoys by Texas in the Rio Grande. Abbott has said Texas has a right to self-defense against what he says is federal inaction about a migrant invasion. President Biden's actions have caused an unprecedented invasion that we must defend against, Abbott said on Thursday. The Biden administration has said that Texas is interfering with the federal enforcement of immigration law.
On Monday, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the Biden administration is legally allowed to open the border by force to cut down razor wire along the Rio Grande sector of the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas. The usual suspects voted for this: Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, but they were joined by so-called conservative justices John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett. So in response to this ruling, which shocked many, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, drafted a letter, not simply to the administration, but to the world. And here's part of what it says. Under President Biden's lawless border policies, more than 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border in just 3 years. That is more than the population of 33 different states in this country. This illegal refusal to protect the states has inflicted unprecedented harm on the people all across the United States. Abbott goes on to say the state of Texas has the authority under the Constitution to, quote, protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land, and it supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary.
While Abbott issues statements about the Biden administration overstepping its authority, Democratic lawmakers like Representative Greg Abbott, Texas, is accusing the governor of taking a play out of former President Trump's playbook. Greg Abbott has continued to use political stunts and inflammatory language to advance his own agenda, violating the Constitution and endangering both U.S. citizens and asylum seekers, Kassar posted on X. Abbott is following the Donald Trump playbook, making immigration harder and more dangerous, so asylum seekers are pushed into the hands of cartels and the system remains broken.
Now we have a border catastrophe like in, nobody's ever seen really anything like it. If you look today over the last, frankly, look over the last 3 years, but you look now, it's so bad. It's like nothing in the history of the world. Yesterday we had a single highest day record of illegal border crossings ever recorded, 12,600, one day. We have no idea who any of them are. They come from Africa, they come from Asia, they come from South America, but not just South America, they're all over the world. They dump them on the border and they pour into our country and nobody's there to check them. And the Border Patrol's incredible, by the way. They want to do it, but they're told not to do their job. It's crazy what's going on. They're ruining our country. And it's true. They're destroying the blood of our country. That's what they're doing. They're destroying our country. They don't like it when I said that. And I never read Mein Kampf. They said, oh, Hitler said that in a much different way. No, they're coming from all over the world, people all over the world. We have no idea. They could be healthy. They could be very unhealthy. They could bring in disease that's going to catch on in our country, but they do bring in crime. But they have them coming from all over the world. And they're destroying the blood of our country. They're destroying the fabric of our country.
Caesar continued with a string of posts, saying he agreed with Representative Joaquin Castro, Texas, who on Tuesday tweeted Biden should seize control of the Texas National Guard. The Supreme Court this week found in the administration's favor when it granted an emergency appeal to allow agents to keep cutting border wires set up by Texas along the border. The state answered by publishing images of it strengthening physical barriers along Eagle Pass. The administration has also sued over a recently signed law that allows Texas state and local officials to arrest illegal immigrants. The administration has accused Texas of interfering with federal control over immigration and border security and said it is putting both agents and migrants in danger.
Yeah, the federal fight here, Nicole, intensifying. Of course, we know DHS, the Biden administration, saying they want full access here to Shelby Park. Texas is saying no way. In fact, they're actually doubling down. Check this out. This is new concertina wire that they just put up, and it is actually topped with the anti-climb barrier up here. So we've seen a lot of individuals come through the river and over these Connex boxes here. This is there now to prevent that. And you can see right over here across the river, there's a lot of activity here in Eagle Pass. Right now, though, on the Mexican side, you can see Mexican officials. And then we also just can also report that Director McCraw with Texas DPS just arrived here at Shelby Park as well. Now, this all comes as we have new video that shows Texas DPS arresting 10 migrants who did cross the Rio Grande illegally this morning and climbed over those Connex boxes that don't yet have that concertina wire there up on top there. Now, 2 others among those 10 were also arrested just moments ago. Now, Lieutenant Olivares with Texas DPS is saying that troopers are enforcing criminal trespass on single adult men and women right now if they cross into Texas illegally.
Governor Greg Abbott is using the Texas National Guard to obstruct and create chaos at the border, Castro posted to X on Tuesday. If Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, a POTUS needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard now. Senator Ted Cruz of the U.S. state of Texas on Friday, January 26th, commented on the recent decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, which approved the administration's request to dismantle a barbed wire fence located along the border with Mexico. He called the court's decision terrible. The politician claims that the situation with illegal immigration has become the worst in the country's history.
Ed, it would be a dramatic policy change for anyone trying to get across.
The president would have the authority to effectively shut down asylum processing here at the U.S.-Mexico border when there's a spike in illegal crossings. Migrants would be quickly expelled back to Mexico across the Rio Grande. It would also make asylum interviews harder to pass and increase deportations, something lawmakers hope will deter migrants from coming to the U.S. While Congress considers these changes, the state of Texas and the Biden administration are involved in an extraordinary legal showdown. Here in Eagle Pass, the Texas National Guard is defying demands to allow federal agents into a public park, fortifying a former Border Patrol staging area for migrants with razor wire. Texas says it needs to block access to deter illegal crossings, and more than 24 Republican governors have supported the state's actions. But the Biden administration says Texas is blocking Border Patrol from doing its job. And Ed, immigration enforcement, after all, is a federal responsibility.
This is a terrible decision. I'm very angry about this, Cruz said, as quoted by RIA Novosti. The senator said he was concerned about the fact of migrants entering the United States across the southern border. He recalled that during the reign of United States President Joe Biden, 9.6 million people entered the country illegally. This is happening intentionally. He wants this to happen. This is the worst situation with illegal immigration in the history of our country, Cruz concluded. Earlier, the governor of Texas, in connection with the influx of migrants to the United States, installed a barbed wire wall at the state border. However, the U.S. Supreme Court decided to dismantle it. Biden's policy is clearly not producing any positive effects. We see how many migrants are invading our country, and the authorities are not doing anything about it. Your children may get hurt, and so can you. The old madman has to leave, and this madness will end. Friends, go to our channel and watch other shocking news, and do not forget to write your opinion in the comments.